talk us through those 4 stages.
The important thing to note to start with is that the 4 stages can apply to individual teachers or to the whole school, and we'll return to that as an issue later on when we've teased out exactly what happens at each stage. Stage 1 is typically either a school or a teacher who in the past has been focused on teaching and hasn't focused extensively on the needs of students and their learning and progress and the outcomes of lessons. So we spend a significant amount of time at stage 1 talking about the pegs for learning that we'd introduced earlier in the previous video, emphasising how to write objectives, how to link those to learning outcomes, all those key constituents of a lesson that's focused on progress. Stage 2, and again if we link this to the Ofsted criteria, typically teachers at stage 2 would be having a judgment of requires improvement, is where we drill down on all those issues. We spend a lot of time working on those, working with them with individual teachers or departments or at whole school level, and helping teachers and whole schools to come to terms with using that focus on progress. Starting a little bit of work with students about that process as well, so they understand the significance of the focus on them and their part that they play in it. Stage 3 will be where both teachers and the school will be comfortable with the notion of progress. You'll be starting to see progress and evidence for progress in classrooms. You'll see that through students, you'll see that with teachers planning, with teachers' role during the course of the lesson, and you'll see it if we're observing with another teacher or a senior manager in school through their understanding of what it is and how they're evaluating progress and how they're recognising it and moving it forward. Stage 4 will be building on stage 3. At stage 3 typically you'd be starting to see good outcomes based on the Ofsted criteria. Stage 4 you continue to embed good outcomes, because to be outstanding, a lesson or a school has to fulfil all the criteria and all the aspects of good before you can even consider whether progress is outstanding. So at stage 4 we'll be working much more significantly on what progress looks like, which is outstanding rather than good. Stage 4 would focus very significantly on the role of students within the lesson and them being responsible for their own progress, taking ownership of it, understanding how to evaluate their own progress, and where students will be working much harder than teachers would in terms of carrying out that evaluation and assessment of their learning during the course of the lesson.
So is it right to say that as we develop through the 4 stages, there's an increasing focus on progress and there's an increasing focus on the role of the students?
Correct, yes, and that builds naturally from stage 1. But what we need to remember, having gone through those stages and seen what they entail, is that it's perfectly possible for a whole school, for example, to be at stage 3 or 4 in that process, where a significant number of teachers are understanding the notion of progress, where judgments on many lessons are good or outstanding, but where some individual teachers are at stage 1 or stage 2. A typical example of a school that I'm currently working with would be where the school overall, in terms of its teaching and learning, would be at stage 3 and 4 with a significant number of outstanding lessons. But some teachers, typically beginning teachers, newly qualified teachers or teach first teachers who are learning their craft, will be at stage 1 or stage 2, and that's where the focus would lie. In other schools it might be that a department is much more effectively further on with that process than other departments are, and therefore the way we work is totally flexible. It's not a one-size-fits-all, and we can adapt and mix and match that process according to individual circumstances.
I'm intrigued about the role of students. How do students participate in this process?
We've developed over the last few years a range of interactions with students, from straightforward small student group student voice processes where students give their opinions about their teaching and learning, talk about what makes a good lesson, and so on and so forth. We've developed a curriculum for students, sometimes delivered during tutor time, where if we're focusing on learning objectives, learning outcomes, questioning, active learning with teachers, we focus on the same issues from a student point of view. so that students understand their role in that and teachers and students meet somewhere in the middle in terms of sharing the process. We have more sophisticated models where we work with a larger group of students. Again, another example that we've been involved in recently is talking to a large group of students in one particular school where they've been answering the two questions in groups of two. What makes a good teacher? We don't allow them to talk about individual teachers. They talk about the generic issues to do with good teaching. And what's your perfect lesson? And we've then gone on to plan a couple of model lessons which they then deliver to teachers and talk through with teachers the rationale of where they're coming from a student perspective.